Okay, let's go into the issue of marriage. And I think this is where a lot of the questions come. So this is probably going to be quite a large segment. And the first question, I think the predominant question that a lot of people ask, why are men allowed 4 wives, but women can't have 4 husbands?
Yeah, there's no doubt that a man is allowed 4 wives. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, marry whomever you will from among the women, 2 or 3 or 4. And obviously, if a person is not able to be fair, then 1. So Allah Azza wa Jal gave permission for a man to marry more than 1 wife. You have to also remember, to put this into context, that prior to the coming of the religion of Islam, the culture among the Arabs was unrestricted marriage on the side of the man. A man could have 10 wives, 20 wives, 30 wives. And Islam considered that to be unjust.
Okay.
So Allah Azza wa Jalla limited it to 4, that is the most that a man can fairly, and he can be fair to, can be just to. So it's an issue, not equality, because a woman can't have 4 husbands.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of fairness. A man can be fair to 4 women, but he can, in terms of sharing equal time, equal wealth, and so on. But more than that, he cannot be fair. Okay. So Allah Azza wa Jalla didn't give that to him. Bear in mind also that Allah Azza wa Jalla also didn't obligate or make an obligation upon him to take 4 wives. Most of the scholars, or many of the scholars, hold that this is something that is mubah, it's permissible, but it's not recommended. And some of them hold that it is recommended for a man to have more than 1 wife. And some said that it's not recommended, but it's simply something which is allowed. So ultimately here, it's not the case that a man is required. It depends on him. Is he able to manage that or not? To be honest, I would say in our time, it's very rare that you find a brother that can actually handle and be fair and just and can actually properly marry more than 1 woman. Very rare. It's not impossible, but you don't see it very often. And it's not that common in our time either. And Islam doesn't, force it upon anybody at the end of the day. But there is a difference between the male and the female in this. Let's just talk about one issue, just as a simple example. Let's talk about protection of lineage.
Okay.
You have a woman who has 4 husbands. Ultimately, that Islam, one of the overriding things that Islam came to protect and preserve is al-ird, someone's honor, and nasab, people's lineage and their honor and so on. So within that, it's not, it wouldn't be practical, and it wouldn't be acceptable really to anyone for a woman to have more than 1 husband. It would be in terms of the issue of the issue of honor. And for example, the Prophet ﷺ told us about the punishment of the man who is not, he doesn't have ghira over his wife. He doesn't feel protective over her. So how about this man? When you hear now, to be honest, when you hear news stories of these couples in open relationships, there's no izzah in it. Right? There's no honor in it. And when you see a man who has 2 wives and looks after them properly and gives them equal time, that's how Allah created the man able to do that. And the woman generally, from a fitrah perspective, wouldn't want it usually. And the reason for that is, even if you look at society in general across the board, what you see that in cultures and non-Islamic cultures where people marry more than 1, I can't think of any examples where a woman takes more than 1 husband. But you can think of many examples around the world where people take more than 1 wife. And that's not an evidence, but that's just to point that it's from the fitrah. Sure. Like it's a natural feeling and a natural thing for a man to take more than 1 wife if certain things are present.
Sure.
With a limit of 4, not to go over that. And it's natural for a woman that she would only want to have 1 husband. That's what Allah Azza wa Jalla brought, and it's natural.
And the protection of lineage, I thought you were going to say that if...
Yeah, protection of lineage. If a woman has more than 1 husband, it doesn't protect the lineage.
If she gets pregnant, then it's...
And we're not, it's not someone say, well, we have DNA tests right now. Like, really? Are we now going to, every child hospital has to have the DNA test attached to them? At the end of the day, like we said, the Sharia deals with every place, every country, every situation. It doesn't deal with, what's happening in England in 2020 or 2021. And it deals the whole world, the whole time from beginning to end. So ultimately, for protection of lineage, and ultimately, it's just not natural. It's just not. That's why when you hear about people, even now, someone comes and says, oh yeah, I'm in an open relationship. me and my wife both have multiple partners. You kind of like a person, they can't, it's not like, it's horrible. And you think, astaghfirullah, what's wrong with this person?
Would you not feel the same way if a man came to you and said, I've got a wife and a mistress?
A wife and a mistress, yeah. I would agree with you totally. I would say that's terrible because that's dhulm.
What if it says that's part of my fitrah? That's just the way I was created.
I would say to him, what you don't understand is that you need to actually take that mistress as a wife, not as a mistress, because you're not giving her any rights. You could leave her tomorrow and you could leave her with nothing, just on the street. You don't give her any rights. You don't look after her. You don't take care of her. She doesn't have a right to your time. So even if the scholars of Islam even debated misyar, where a woman willingly marries a man on the condition that the man won't give her rights. And he says, like, I'm not going to give you anywhere to live.
And she agrees to it before.
And she happily agrees to it. I'm fine with that. I will live with my parents. I'm more than happy. I just want to get married. Even the ulama differed over this. How about somebody who took a mistress? And it's not. That's not from the rights of a woman. And even then, if a woman was to write in her marriage contract and to say that, for example, I don't give my permission for my husband to take more than one wife, it's a matter the scholars differed over.
Okay.
So it's not a case of oppressing women.